Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys another Draft League type tier list video. It's been a minute, but we are back with the grass typing, completing our Fire, Water, Grass core already here, which is tried to staple in the Draft League format, despite it being a little bit outdated. We'll talk about that. We've kind of talked about it fast, but grass types, if you'll see is like the length of this video is really short. There's not that many grasses in Paldea decks right now. Even post-home, there's really not that many. I might have missed a couple going through. I always end up missing one or two or something like that. But regardless, I think we're only ranking about 30 Pokemon today, which is so much less compared to like the water video that we did or, you know, things like that. So really, really scarce typing. And it's odd because grass is seen as a more defensive typing, right? It's very important for a lot of teams to have solid grass to resist ground and things like that. But it's not the best defensive typing at the same time. It has a ton of weaknesses between ice and flying and fire and bug and so many different things that, you know, come to mind. So it's weird because it's kind of in this middle ground. I think there's a lot of great grass types, but typically they're not pure grasses or they're not good because they're a grass type, if that makes any sense. I think like pretty much every pure grass that we'll talk about on this list today, outside of maybe a few, are going to be pretty mediocre. So we'll see how it goes. If you guys do enjoy today's tier list video, be sure to drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 3K subs, and we're zooming through the 2000s. And you want to make sure you're a part of this, you know, party before we get to 3K. So you can say you were here before, the big 3K. But yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump on into it. First up, we have the absolute GOAT in Hisuian Electrode. Now, I don't want to spoil it too much, so I fixed the crop a little bit, because this is just a wee bit big right now. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I do have a movie coming out where Hisuian Electrode might be a big centerpiece in it. And honestly, I love this thing's value. It is a very low point Pokemon. And I kind of want to reiterate when I do these tier lists, not that I'm saying like Hisuian Electrode is worth 15 points if I put it high. I'm saying the point value that it's out, does it offer a good amount of value? Like what's the value that it offers to a team? And I think for a low point, you know, like 3-point Pokemon, Hisuian Electrode is incredible. Incredibly fast. The dual stab is really annoying to switch into. Sub-Leech, it has Taunt. Chloroblast and Leaf Storm is absolute nukes. It has good abilities in Soundproof, Static, and Aftermath. So a ton of great ability options as well. Gosh, I'm going to Volt Switch very freely, because grounds aren't going to want to switch in and block those Volt Switches when you can throw off a Leaf Storm or a Chloroblast in their face. And with Terra, I think this Pokemon is obviously very slept on. Whether it be Terra Ice, Terra Fairy, Terra Fire, a ton of different options, even just Terra Grass or Electric, just nuking things. I think this Pokemon offers incredible value as low tier. This is going to be my hot take of the day. I'm going to put it in B tier. It's probably going to be towards the bottom of B tier, but this Pokemon offers incredible value in the lower end. Now, unfortunately, we're going to kind of get to the point too, especially compared to other grasses. This thing's great because, as I'm about to say, as you get to these lower end grasses, some of them are unbearably terrible. They are really, really bad Pokemon. So we're going to kind of start off with a couple right here. First up being Jumpluff. Jumpluff's saving grace is that it's fast. Like maybe like Acrobatics that can go, you know, a little bit crazy. But it's very weak. It's very frail. It has a bad defensive typing. Grass Flying, 4 times weak to Ice. And just really weak to a lot of things. That Rock's weakness is really tough. I think like Sub-Leech sets are cool potentially. And again, it can be very fast and very annoying. But the defensive typing plus very lackluster stats just kind of lend it to being meh. And it doesn't really have great offensive options as well, between Grass Flying not really covering each other very well, at least like the things that resist those moves. So maybe unless you're tearing this thing, it's not super worth picking up, to be honest. And even then, you're tearing a Jumpluff. Next up is Sunflora. I feel like I don't really have to talk about Sunflora. Terrible stats. Okay move pool at least, and decent ability, but it's really just those stats hold it back. This thing is really, really bad, guys. Like, it is a terrible, terrible Pokemon, and I can't justify putting it any higher than the bottom of D tier. Okay, break up a little bit of the terrible with some good. We have an A tier Pokemon in Breloom. Breloom is borderline S tier for me personally. I think objectively it's definitely an A tier Pokemon. This Pokemon is so unbelievably strong. Life Orb, Bullet Season, Close Combats, and Mach Punches, and Bulldozes, and Rock Tombs, and all these different things are terrifying to deal with. If it gets up an SD, good night. It has Spore, one of the best status moves in the game, which is awesome. And those grasses that want to switch in and absorb that Spore, you're just going to break through them with your Technician moves, or with a +2 Close Combat as you set up a Swords Dance. Now, not only do you have the Technician option, but you have Talk Score plus Poison Heal can be incredible as well, being a really bulky nuisance. Honestly, super slept on when it comes to its bulk and its Edge Quake resistance. I love Breloom. It is very hard to fit onto teams, but if you can, you're gonna love it. Trust me. I mean, I've been loving it in BBR. I've drafted like 4 or 5 other times, and I've loved it every time. It really is an incredible Pokemon. Next up, we have Cacturn. I'm going to put Cacturn at the top of D, solely because it has the move Spikes. And that's about it. It can Spikes and Sucker Punch, so it has priority, and it has a good move pool, but a really bad typing and really bad speed distribution and defensive stats and things like that. It's really how slow it is that makes it terrible. So, yeah, I would have loved to see a Mega Cacturn. That would have been really cool. Next up, we have Tropius. Tropius is going to go here in D tier. It can do some funny things like Harvest, maybe even Chlorophyll, things like that. It gets DD. You know, I guess decent coverage. Not really, though. Reliable recovery and roost, but really bad defensive typing, really bad offensive typing, and really bad offensively and really bad defensively. There's not much to say about it. It's a pretty terrible Pokemon. Next up, we have Abomasnow, which I'm going to put in B tier. I think that Hail this generation is the best that it's ever been, and it's going to be the best that it ever is. As like more, you know, Hail Sweepers potentially get introduced in DLCs and things like that. Not only does this thing bulkier because of the snow boost, snow in general is less annoying for the rest of your team, not chipping it down throughout the game, which is awesome. This thing is great with the Veil. It can be physical, special, mixed, a great breaker, and honestly very solid defensively as well. Obviously, Grass Ice isn't the best defensive typing in the world, and there's some really scary things like a Ember is going to burn this thing alive. It is not gonna, you know, have a great way of surviving that. But regardless, this Pokemon can still be really annoying offensively and defensively for a lot of teams. Sets up Veil and supports other scary teammates really well as well. So again, I'm not gonna hate on Veil. It's the best Veil used in the format right now. It might even be the only like viable one. So yeah, Abomasnow's got to stay in B tier for me. Really good Pokemon. Next up, we'll finally have something dip into C tier. We're gonna go ahead and put Big Leafeon. Leafeon, very low tier option, very bad coverage and terrible spread def, but something that it does have is a very solid Fizz def and Wish. So, this Pokemon is going to be very incredible as ground resist, especially if you need a low point budget ground resist. This is going to be a really solid option for you to pick up and potentially use. So I definitely recommend using Sylveon in your next draft league when you need a really low cheap ground resist and drafting it instead of Cacturn. But yeah. Next up, we have Rotom. I'm going to go ahead and put Rotom. I'm going to put it at the bottom of A tier, just because I think compared to everything else in these tier lists, it's actually one of the better grasses, because there's not really that many good grasses at this point anymore. But Rotom is one of my favorite Pokemon. Obviously nerfed this generation, no Defog, no Pain Split, no Toxic, things like that. But it's still so obnoxious to switch into. Great dual stab. Again, it's an electric type that doesn't really get Volt Switch stopping it, because those grounds don't want to come in. You spread T-Ways, you spread Will-O-Wisp, you can Nasty Plot, you can be Scarf, you can be Specs, you can be Trick, obviously, which is awesome, and do a ton of really obnoxious things. I like Rest Talk or Rest Chesto a lot. I like Protect Lefties alongside those Will-O-Wisp, really chipping and burning things down. So there's really some options you can use to keep it healthy, and obviously you can have some Wish on your team that helps it out as well. So yeah, definitely an okay Pokemon. Speaking of okay Pokemon, we have Lilligant. Lilligant's like a very budget Quiver Dance Sweeper that doesn't do much, but is pretty strong, I guess. So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna put it in C. There's definitely better options when you need like a, you know, budget low tier sweeper. But its Hisuian counterpart is actually going to be our first S tier, and I think that reason is because of the possibility of it being a Terra Captain. I've played Hisuian Terra Lilligant before, multiple times actually already, and man, is that thing scary. For those of you who don't know, it has a move called Victory Dance, which is basically physical Quiver Dance, alongside a grass fighting stab combination, and either Hustle or Chlorophyll if you don't want to miss, slash or Running Sun. Then you have moves like Rock Slide as well, Close Combat, Leaf Blade, and then the option of Terra into like Terra Fighting or whatever it may be that you want to set up with. It could be a defensive or an offensive typing and be really scary. I think under Sun with Terra and Terra Firing and Chlorophyll and all that thing, this thing could be also super scary, because Grass Fighting Fire is like not fun to switch into for many teams. So I'm definitely big on Hisuian Lilligant. I want to try it really bad upcoming, like, you know, post-home leagues and things like that. So really solid Pokemon. Next up, we have Big Sawsbuck. I'm probably gonna put Sawsbuck down here in D tier. I don't really know what it does besides be a really shitty Chlorophyll sweeper. I think it can Serene Grace, like Headbutt Flinch shit too. I really don't know. It's a Sawsbuck, and if you've drafted and used it well, show me a replay in the comments below, because I've never seen someone use Sawsbuck well. Next up, we actually have a pretty interesting one, a Pokemon that I think a lot of people are really gonna scratch their head a little bit because you have it so high in Quilladin. This Pokemon is incredible for a low tier grass type Eviolite Mon. It's really good. very budget. Obviously, this is going to be like 2-3 points maximum, but the value it offers at that point is incredible. Being Sludge Bomb immune / like Bullet Move immune with Bulletproof, setting up spikes forever. It can Super Fang. It can, I think it can Roar as well. It can leech things and be a big nuisance. Some teams just don't break Quilladin very well. It becomes a big problem for a lot of teams once, you know, it's in and it starts setting up spikes and starts throwing around leech seeds and things like that. Almost as big of a threat as Big Papa Chestnut right here, who I think epitomizes the top of B tier. I've heard some people tell me that they think Terra Chestnut is going to be really solid, and I think that like Belly Drum Trailblaze sets can actually be really cool, because it does get access to Belly Drum, but realistically this thing's strength is going to come from it being so darn physically bulky, resisting Edgequake so well, setting up spikes, spreading passive damage, maybe being like some kind of setup variant and breaking through some fatter teams, but realistically setting up spikes and being a nuisance is kind of Chestnut's main job, and it does it really well. I've never been disappointed with Chestnut before, so yeah. Next up we have Go-Goat. Again, another grass type that I've just never really seen used. I think it gets Milk Drink, which is cool, and Bulk Up, but its stats are pretty mediocre. It has like, I think, a high HP stat, and that's it, so I can't justify putting it any higher than it is right now. Okay, next up we have Serena. I'm going to put Serena in B tier. Now, I'm personally not big on Serena. I always use Serena terribly whenever I draft it, but I can't deny that it's one of the best and reliable spinners in the metagame right now. Sorry, I'm getting a notification on my phone. Okay, there we go. It was the assignment that I just did. Sorry about that. But it's a great spinner. It grabs great momentum in U-turn. Grass plus fighting plus ice coverage is going to be very solid and very tough for a lot of teams to switch into. So objectively, it belongs here. I always use it terribly though, so yeah. Next up, we have Decky Dewey. And I'm going to put regular Alolan Decky Dewey up here in the top of B tier. Another Pokemon I personally have always loved. Really just a jack of all trades Pokemon. It can be bulky, it can be offensive, it can be a little bit of both, and Swords Dance, and Nasty Plot, and Shadow Sneak, and Sucker Punch. Great physical coverage, great special coverage, and really can just break through some teams really well, as well as be a good glue piece and a good pivot, you turning in and out for the rest of your team to thrive and do well. I've always been a big Decidueye fan. It's my favorite Grass Ghost out of the 3 from that like era of like Gen 6/7. There's a bunch of Grass Ghost types, and I think Decidueye is by far the best out of all of them. Love the Pokemon. Now, next up we have Hisuian Decidueye. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put it in B tier. I don't think I can put it up there in A tier with, I'm going to put it behind Chestnut. I don't think I can put it up above Chestnut or Breloom, who just kind of, at least at first glance, look to do the type better. Now, I haven't really played a Hisuian Decidueye or played with it, so I can't say for sure. I could be wrong. I think its signature move is really cool. I think it like drops defense and boosts crit rate, which is really nuts. It's not the strongest thing in the world, but grass fighting, again, like we mentioned, is really strong offensively. I think the biggest issue with this is it's even slower than Breloom, and Breloom is kind of like looked down upon by a lot of people due to its very lackluster speed tier. And this Pokemon is Breloom, bulkier, but slower, which is really tough for a lot of teams. I don't know. So maybe I could be tripping. I think this Pokemon will be solid, but I definitely can't justify putting it over Chestnut and Breloom. I'm actually going to go ahead and put it under Abomasnow, because I'm a big Abomasnow stan right now. Okay, next up we have Lurantis, and unfortunately, big fella's got to go in D tier. This Pokemon used to be pretty solid. I would probably put it in C tier, looking at our C tier now if it was Generation 8, but it did lose access to Superpower, which is its physical wave boosting, where it hits Steel types, which grass types don't typically have, and obviously Contrary boosting up its attack and defense every time it clicks it. Made this thing very scary. That plus Knockoff plus Leaf Storm was like a tried and true like AV set with like one more move of coverage or something like that. And now it really only has Leaf Storm to kind of boost that special attack. But I think his physical attack is just better. So, I don't know. It's tough. He deserves to be he deserves to be down here though, unfortunately. Just because like, I don't know. It could have been so much better if it kept Superpower, especially in this gen with like no grasses, but they decided to shaft him. Speaking of shafting a Pokemon line, let's talk about No Glide, what do you call it, Thwacky and Rillaboom. Thwacky is going to go down here in D tier. I'm actually going to go ahead and put it above Lurantis, because I think Lurantis is that bad. And I'm actually, hot take, going to put Rillaboom in C tier, which is crazy, because this was an S tier Pokemon last generation for me. It it was an S tier Pokemon because Grassy Glide plus that Grassy Terrain and U-Turn and Knockoff and Superpower and High Horsepower and Swords Dance and being Choice Band, Choice Scarf, AV made this thing so incredibly tough to deal with, but now it lost access to that Grassy Glide, I think Superpower and High Horsepower as well, which is really tough, but that Grassy Glide is going to be the biggest one. Rillaboom not being able to glide is so unbelievably detrimental to his kit. And it makes it almost a downright, I don't know, it's a point sucker. I personally wouldn't draft it. I'll be honest, I wouldn't draft either of these Pokemon in Generation 9 unless they get those moves back. So, we'll see. Maybe I could be wrong. Maybe I could be tripping and over-exaggerating it, but yeah. Next up is Calyrex. I'm not talking about Calyrex. You want to look up a bad Pokemon. This Pokemon's worse than Sunflora. Change my mind. You can't. It's worse than Sunflora. It might be worse than fucking Sunkern. Well, it's terrible. But next up, we actually have a couple of bangers in a row. First up is going to be Zarude. Zarude is going to be our second S-tier Pokemon here. Another great Mon. I really like Zarude right now. Whether it be with bulk up sets, with scarf sets, with Life Orb, with Band, AV is great. I've seen just bulky leftover sets kind of U-turn around and be a big nuisance. The Grass Dark typing is pretty rough defensively, but offensively it's good when you have access to moves like Close Combat and Rock Slide to really beat down a lot of your checks. Jungle Healing is a stall destroying move. If you're playing stall and you have a Zarude, you're probably having a good time as well. So yeah, I think these things all outweigh the 4x bug weakness and make this Pokemon incredible. Speaking of 4x bug weakness, we got another one that goes up here in S tier. Another Grass Dark type in Meowscarada. Whether it be offensive sets with Scarf or Band, or Focus Sash leads with Spikes and Acro or Taunter, or even Leaf Storm mixed like they run in OU sometimes. This Pokemon is very good. It's very fast, it's very strong. Protean makes it very versatile potentially, but even overgrowing those Sash sets with Flower Trick, which is a guaranteed crit move from this Pokemon who's incredibly fast, is going to be awesome. It can also Sucker Punch if believe it has good priority, so yeah, it forces its own progress. It's a great spiker and a really obnoxious Pokemon. So I'm definitely a big Meowscarada believer this gen. I think the mon's awesome. Okay, next up we have Arboliva. Arboliva is going to go here in C tier probably. Yeah, I'm going to put it ahead of Lilligant. Seed Sower is a pretty cool ability, so Grassy Terrain. I wish it just had Grassy Terrain. I feel like that would make more sense. It also has really good coverage offensively between Hyper Voice, Giga Drain. It also has like Earth Power and Dazzling Gleam and shit. So like, it has good coverage. It could be annoying. The normal typing, I think, hurts it more than it helps it. I kind of wish this thing was a pure grass, but not the end of the world. Still an okay Pokemon. Villain is going to go here. Oops. In the B tier Ruski. I'm going to go ahead and put it here in the middle of B tier. Now, obviously, this is a very fluctuating Pokemon. If you draft it without Sun, it's a D tier Pokemon. If you draft it with Sun, it's low-key an A tier or an S tier Pokemon, because this thing is so scary under the Sun. Getting that Chlorophyll boost, boosting its fire moves, and having Grass as a dual typing as well with it. Fire Grass is so tough for so many teams to deal with. This thing with Terra can also be very scary for a lot of teams. And Sun is so good this gen, it's easy to fit in on teams. If you have Sun and you have a couple Paradox Pokemon, you grab the Villain and you clean through teams with Sun. So, yeah, definitely a good Pokemon. Bramblin is going to go down here in front of Go-Goat. Another bad Pokemon, bad move pool. It can spin and spike, which is cool. And its ability is kind of cool, being immune to like a Hurricane, Heat Wave, and shit like that. But I wish I had a physical Ghost Dad that wasn't Phantom Force or Shousting. It's pretty tough, in my opinion. Next up, we have an A tier Pokemon here in Brood Bonnet. Maybe I'm tripping and super overrating this thing, but I really want to try this Pokemon. I think it's very strong, it's very bulky, has access to Spore, Sucker Punch, Swords Dance, Close Combat. With Terra could be pretty cool, like Terra fighting sets seem like they could be pretty darn awesome. And yeah, this Pokemon's going to be really tough for a lot of teams to switch into. It's very slow, but is very scary if positioned well on fatter teams. Next up is Live Wo-Chien Reaction in A tier as well. Another Pokemon I think is like overhyped because of the meme. Now, I think it's good still, but it is very exploitable. It is a little bit passive, but there's some teams that are just not going to appreciate dealing with Wo-Chien, and it can be a big nuisance for a lot of squads. So, definitely big on Mr. Wo-Chien here. I think it's very solid. It's at least better than everything in B tier. And finishing it off, we have Toedscruel. who's also going to go up here in B tier. Pretty darn close to the top, though. I think this Pokemon's mad underrated right now. I think it's very good offensively with its coverage of grass and ground, and then even like fairy and stuff like that is pretty cool. I think it also gets toxic as a product of being like a Tentacruel-ish type Pokemon. It gets knockoff, it gets spore and spikes and rapid spit. Now it has that downside of Mycelium Might being its ability, but it also means that, you know, things can't avoid your status moves because of your ability. So like, you give and you take. I think going a little bit slower on those turns is a bit unfortunate, definitely a net negative, but it has its positive applications too. Maybe going second is better because you want to catch something as it U-turns in, or it gets, you know, doubled in or baton pass, whatever it may be. You have that opportunity to go last, which can always be very clutch. So yeah, that is going to be our tier list for the grass types. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know what your favorite grass type and Paldea Dex is right now. If I'm tripping, if Meowscarlet is terrible and Lurantis is fucking broken, let me know why in the comments. I always love those comments. Oops, didn't mean to do that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching again. Don't forget you enjoyed. So see you in the next one. Later.